What is good, my wonderful people? Welcome back to the Pulse Metrics channel. Today we have another fantasy ranking video coming your way. Today we got tight ends. Now, for this list, there's going to be, since each team only has one significant good tight end, I'm only going to be ranking 15 because the other ones are just, absolutely garbage and, no one's going to draft him. So I'm going to do the ones that a lot of people most significantly are going to think about drafting. Quick disclaimer as usual, if you disagree, please let me know in the comments what you change, what you would switch, what you disagree with. So, without further ado, let's get into my top 15 tight ends for fantasy football. Alright, so here we are at the tier list. So we have the column 1 to 3, 4 to 6, 7 to 10, 11 to 13, and 14 to 15. Starting off with the best tight end for fantasy football right now, you have Sam Laporta. Fantasy ESPN has him ranked, ESPN 100% agrees with me. They have him as the number one tight end. Honestly, I agree. This man had 10 touchdowns last year. He's basically their number 2 receiver. Besides, Jameson Williams, Amon-Ra St. Brown's clearly their number 1 receiver. But if he's not open, Sam Laporta is. Because they're going to be so worried about covering those 2 fast wide receivers in Jameson Williams and Amon-Ra St. Brown that they're going to forget about this man, Sam Laporta, as a rookie. This is only his second year in the league, and he's already the number 1 ranked fantasy player. That is insane. 10 touchdowns. Obviously, he gets a lot of touchdowns. He's not the biggest yards after catch guy, so that might hurt a lot of fantasy users. But if you're looking for touchdowns when it comes to tight ends, this guy's your guy. Moving on now to number 2. I have Travis Kelce. He's not going to get as many targets as he could because, the Chiefs got some wide receivers this offseason. And honestly, that is cool. But, Travis Kelce's still the guy. He's aging a lot. He's 35-something years old. 34, I think. 35 or 34, around that area. He's been in the league for a little while now. Last year, I think he only had 6 touchdowns or so. I mean, the Chiefs overall receiving, they had it down here. They had the most drop passes in the entire league. But he had the most receptions out of tight ends last year. So that certainly helps when it comes to points. He wasn't really as good of a touchdown guy as you might think. Like I said, they had a down year. Overall, the Chiefs, Mahomes, everyone had a real down year. I think a lot of people were expecting Travis Kelce to be picked in the first round because that's the guy he is. That he's the tight end that you would expect to be picked in the first round. So what does he do? He spits on them. They should have just picked Sam Laporta in the first round because at least he got double-digit touchdowns, unlike Kelce. But either way, Kelce is still an insanely good receiver, and I don't expect that to change anytime soon. All right, moving on to number 3. In my eyes, I think it's Mark Andrews, and according to Fantasy, they agree with me 100%. I mean, Mark Andrews is clearly their number 1 receiver. I mean, no disrespect to Zay Flowers, but besides Zay Flowers, they don't really have anyone significant wide receiver wise. I mean, Rashad Bateman, I guess he's cool, but OBJ left. Nelson Aguilar's terrible now. Isaiah Likely, he could. He's good and all, but that was only when Mark Andrews was injured. By the way, Mark Andrews more and more is starting to get more injury prone. So, risky, but still, he's one of the best tight ends in the game. Again, he's clearly Lamar's number 1 receiver, but he's not going to be thrown to as much because, they just got Derrick Henry. They're the number 1 rushing offense in the entire league. It's mostly, it's going to be either they're going to run the ball to Derrick Henry or they're going to fake run the ball to Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson's going to run. Or they're just going to pass to Mark Andrews. it's really a three-man show on offense. Zay Flowers is working his way up there, but I don't see him being a number one wide receiver significantly for a long time. I think Mark Andrews is the number 3 wide tight end in fantasy football. But moving on to the 4th best tight end in fantasy football, we have Evan Engram. Man, this guy, again, number 1 wide receiver on the Jaguars. Well, he's not a wide receiver, he's a tight end, but he's still a receiver. Like Gabe Davis, like, no, he's not going to cut it. Like, you need someone to be a good weapon for Trevor Lawrence. And I feel like Evan Engram last year really proved that he's the man. Like, Calvin Ridley didn't do crap yet last year. I mean, stats may prove otherwise, but, I mean, if you watch the games, it really didn't look like he did all that much. You still got, Travis Etienne. He can catch the ball, definitely. It was one of the best scoring running backs. But overall, I mean, who else are you going to go to? I mean, Evan Engram is like the main guy that you would go to because he can catch, he can score. I mean, he does get a lot of touchdowns. Not as, again, like Sam Laporta, not the biggest like yards after catch tight end, but he's still a pretty good, significant tight end, and I feel like he's the number 4 for me. Kudos to him. All right, now moving on to the number 5th best tight end in the entire league of fantasy, we have George Kittle. I mean, like, the guy, no matter how old this guy gets, he still can catch the ball really well. He's been getting hurt a lot recent years. He has the most yards out of tight ends. That is certainly going to help you a lot. But, does he really, I mean, is Brock Purdy really going to need him a lot more than he used to? I mean, that's the question, because you also got Deebo Samuel. You got Brandon Ayuk, who doesn't seem like he's going anywhere. And on top of it all, you have Christian McCaffrey, who caught more touchdown passes than George Kittle last year, which is absolutely insane. Because, we all know CMC can do everything. But, like George Kittle, he can still catch the ball significantly well. Now, he is a tight end that is a big yards after catch guy. Because, you have a good quarterback with Brock Purdy, threw 31 touchdowns last year. I liked how Brock Purdy really spread that out a lot between Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, CMC, George Kittle. But, the reason that George Kittle's not as high is because, he's got those 3 other guys, so he's going to be spreading the ball out a lot. He's going to be sharing the targets a lot. But either way, George Kittle is still a beast, man. All right, and moving on to number 6. You guys already know. I have Kyle Pitts. The man finally got himself a quarterback with Kirk Cousins, and luckily Kirk Cousins has a lot to work with. Kyle Pitts once was one of the best tight ends in the entire league, but lost his quarterback. Now he has Kirk Cousins, and Drake London's ready to break 1,000 yards. So he's like, if you saw my wide receivers, I had him ranked 15th. So you definitely go ahead and draft him like 2nd round. Maybe he's not a 1st round wide receiver. He hasn't really proven himself to be yet, but if you really want him in the 2nd round, he's available. I would suggest drafting him. But it's not about Drake London. It's about Kyle Pitts, man. This guy really has deserved to be at the top of the mountain forever now, man. Like, oh my goodness, Kyle Pitts, like, when he's healthy, he is a animal. And now that he finally has a quarterback, he could be contending for Offensive Player of the Year. I'm not even kidding. It might be a hot take. He does have to worry about Bijan Robinson, who can also catch. But, that's not really going to happen. I mean, Kyle Pitts, you got to, hopefully they use him right. All right, moving on to number 7, we have David Njoku. I mean, this guy was an absolute animal last year, Joe Flacco, I mean, he had a good quarterback, Joe Flacco, but the reason he's this low is because, you have Deshaun Watson, and you also have Amari Cooper, who Deshaun Watson probably will be throwing to more than David Njoku, which I personally don't agree with. But, I mean, like, what can you do? Deshaun Watson's definitely old. He's probably, as I mentioned with Amari Cooper in my last wide receiver video, he's not going to be as good as he was because he doesn't have a good quarterback. I would suggest, if I were the Browns, I would suggest rolling with Deshaun Watson for at least one more season, then maybe, like, trade him. Not like anyone's going to want him, but, like, I would trade him, hopefully draft a good quarterback so you can finally get a significant quarterback for David Njoku and Amari Cooper, because let's be honest, guys, these guys deserve a lot better. David Njoku had probably the best season of his entire career, in my opinion. But next up, at number 8, call me crazy, I have Trey McBride. Right here. Why is my computer freezing up? Alright. I mean, dude, the guy had like 1,000 yards in like 10 games. And now that Kyler Murray's going to be healthy and he has like a very young rookie wide receiver, this guy could get most of the targets. I mean, this guy is by far one of the most underrated players in the entire league that I have ever seen. Like, this guy, I mean, when Zach Ertz got hurt, this guy stepped up. I mean, he's an animal. I mean, and if he gets all the targets, like, he's a good yards after catch tight end. You don't see a lot of tight ends nowadays get over 1,000 yards, and that's just a fact. But Trey McBride, as long as he has a quarterback that can actually get him the ball, then he is going to be a different animal. I'm telling you, man. Alright, moving on to number 9. Believe it or not, it's Dalton Kincaid, man. Like, this is kind of tough. I mean, the Bills lost all their receivers. They lost Diggs. They lost Gabe Davis. Now they have a young guys with Khalil Shakir, Keon Coleman. So, this guy was just drafted last year. Yeah, he did for apparently a guy who looks, underwhelming. He looks pretty good. He looks like a pretty decent tight end. And now that Diggs and Gabe Davis are going to be gone, he could possibly get all the targets. I mean, Keon Coleman, the number 1 wide receiver, I mean, it's okay. But, I think Dalton Kincaid is really going to bail Josh Allen out. I mean, you saw what he did last year. I mean, he did pretty significant. I mean, he really stepped it up as Stephon Diggs was starting to really regress last season. So, Kincaid could really shock a lot of you. Because, a lot of people don't really want to draft this guy, and I have no idea why. Is it because it's only his second year in the league? I'm not sure. People do not want to draft this guy. Another guy like Trey McBride that's really underrated, in my opinion. Moving on now to number 10, I think we are. Yeah, number 10. We have Jake Ferguson, man. Brandon Cooks, by far one of the oldest guys in the entire league. He's old. CeeDee Lamb, one of the 3rd best wide receiver in fantasy football. If you guys saw my other video, I'll post a link in the description. But, hey, Jake Ferguson, he did really well last year. With CeeDee Lamb being really the only significant wide receiver on that team and Dak having the year that he had, Jake Ferguson is, another great receiver. With another great yards after catch receiver, which really helps. More yards equals more points. More points equals more wins. You guys get the cycle. Jake Ferguson, again, with a couple of their receivers leaving and Brandon Cooks being the number 2 receiver, no. Jake Ferguson needs to be the number 2 receiver. And it's not like Dak's going to go to CeeDee all the time, non-stop CeeDee Lamb, because he's got to mix in some other guys, and Jake Ferguson will be one of those guys that Dak mixes in. Alright, now these last few are, really good tight ends, but I couldn't really fit them in the top 10 because these guys are going to be absolutely going off this season. But at number 11, we have Dallas Goedert. As much as I love this guy, Dallas Goedert is just, he's very injury prone now. He can catch anything, by the way, but he's very, the injuries are going to limit him. And, they're not going to go to him as much because he's basically the number 3 receiver on the team. You know, you got A.J. Brown, you got Devontae Smith. You know, those two are like top 10, top 15, definitely top 15 receivers in the league. So the question is, will they need Dallas Goedert as much? Because, the Eagles' offense, it's either going to be running the ball with Saquon, running the ball with Hurts, or passing to either Smith or Brown. Most of the time it's going to be Brown. But, what's Dallas Goedert going to do? I mean, it's just going to be sad to see him not get as many targets because Dallas Goedert's absolutely amazing. So that's why he's at number 11. Number 12. TJ Hawkinson, same reason he's that low as Dallas Goedert. You got two great wide receivers, Jordan Addison and the best in the league, Justin Jefferson. And they're going to be running the ball a lot to Aaron Jones. And you have a rookie quarterback. Same thing why I ranked Justin Jefferson at 4, because you have a rookie quarterback. He's not going to, and so it's really going to, his fate really asks the question, like, is J.J. McCarthy going to progress as much as we think he will this season? But just to be sure, I think I have TJ Hawkinson at number 12. He was a dog last year. Had 4 touchdowns in like his first 2 games, which is insane. But all these aspects, like you have 2 other receivers here. You have a good running back who can also catch. You have a rookie quarterback. So TJ Hawkinson won't be as significant as he was last year, in my opinion. All right, moving on to number 13, I think it is. Yeah, 13. We have Pat Freiermuth. Yeah, this guy is gonna get a lot more targets, due to Deontay Johnson leaving, George Pickens, being the number 1 wide receiver. So this guy's gonna be the number 2 wide receiver. Same reason like David Njoku, Jake Ferguson, like same reason those guys are ranked this low. The thing with Pat Freiermuth is that he can't seem to stay healthy. And that is going to be wildly disappointing to a lot of fantasy users. Like, you need a tight end that can stay healthy. I love tight ends that stay healthy because they get you the most points. Pat Freiermuth here, he was dealing with injuries a lot last year. And now he's not even the number 1 target. It's George Pickens. And you have the fantasy demon himself, Arthur Smith, calling the offensive plays. I mean, this guy is the fantasy killer. I hate drafting players that are under the control of this guy. This is basically Van Jefferson. Arthur Smith. More targets for 3rd string tight end. I'm so smart. Or more carries for 4th string practice squad running back. I'm so smart. Like, Arthur Smith ruined the Falcons, and I really don't see any reason why Pat Freiermuth is gonna be significant with that guy calling plays. But moving on to number 14, we're heading into the final stretch. Moving on to number 14, I have Brock Bowers. Again, like a rookie tight end. He's not going to be very significant. And plus, you also have a good duo with Jacoby Myers and Devontae Adams. Like, that's okay, that's good. Again, and like, who the hell is going to be your quarterback? Oh my goodness, like you got Aiden O'Connell or Gardner Minshew, 2 like very insignificant quarterbacks, like that, it just scares me. And like you have new management, you have a new coach and everything. Like Josh McDaniel last year absolutely ruined the Raiders. But you have a good coach. I mean, anything's better than Josh McDaniel, but he's got to prove himself. And again, like Brock Bowers, rookie tight end, he's not going to be very significant, all that stuff. Like, like with TJ Hawkinson, all of these factors are going to come into play when you draft Brock Bowers. Like, if you even think about drafting Brock Bowers, you got to think, who's their quarterback going to be? Are they going to go to Devontae Adams a lot more? Is the coach going to be significant calling the plays? Like, all of these things you have to think about first before drafting Brock Bowers. And moving on to number 15. I really hate to do it because this guy's absolutely amazing, but we have Dalton Schultz. I mean, like, dude, you have 3 ace wide receivers. Like, you don't need at this point, like, you don't need a tight end. You have Stephon, Nico Collins, Tank Dell, and you have a good running back. Like, the Texans don't even need a tight end when they have those 3 ace receivers. Like, it's insane, and it's honestly really sad to see because Dalton Schultz is absolutely amazing when they only had Tank Dell and Nico Collins. Plus, you also have Stephon Diggs is going to be whining for targets, whining until C.J. Stroud finally gives up and gives him more targets. Plus, Stephon Diggs is an absolute dog. Tank Dell is an absolute dog. Nico Collins is an absolute dog. Dalton Schultz is too, but I wouldn't recommend drafting him because, I would keep him as a backup for sure in case your starter tight end gets injured. But, it's just that, like, C.J. Stroud is going to be looking at Stephon, Nico, and Tank Dell a lot more, that he's basically going to forget about Dalton Schultz. And there you have it, folks. Those are my top 15 tight ends for the 2024 fantasy football season. Please make sure, if you found this video useful, please make sure to leave a like on this video and make sure to subscribe, guys. We are on the road to 500. I'm trying to get monetized very soon, so make sure to subscribe for more content. I'll see y'all next time. Peace out.